Have you ever noticed how love, when it's real, doesn't always arrive in grand, sweeping gestures? It's not always flowers at the door or diamond rings hidden in dessert. Sometimes it shows up quietly, in the smallest moments, so subtle you could miss them, unless you know what to look for. I've met women who've been married for decades, women whose hair has turned silver and whose faces carry the gentle lines of years well lived. And when they talk about the men who have loved them deeply, they rarely mention expensive gifts or fancy vacations. Instead, their voices soften when they recall the way he reached for their hand without thinking, or how he would wait for them to catch up when walking down the street, never rushing ahead. Love, the kind that stays, is in the details. It's in the way a man shows he sees you, hears you, and values you. And for many of us, especially as we grow older, these moments become even more precious because real love doesn't fade with time. It deepens. It roots itself in your everyday life, and it changes how you feel in your own skin. Today, we're going to explore the kinds of things a man does when his love for you is true and enduring. They're not always dramatic, but they are always meaningful. And as we talk about them, you might just find yourself smiling, thinking, yes, I've seen that before. One of the first signs of this deep love is the way he listens, really listens. Not the polite nodding that happens when someone is waiting for their turn to speak, but the kind where you can see in his eyes that he is soaking up every word. You could be telling him about something that happened years ago, or even something small and ordinary, like what you saw on your walk that morning, and still he gives you his full attention. There's no distraction, no glancing at a phone, no impatient sigh, just presence. It might seem simple, but this kind of listening is rare. It means your thoughts matter to him, your voice matters to him. It's his way of saying, without words, you are important to me. And when you've been together for a long time, having someone who still listens as if you're the most interesting person in the room is a gift beyond measure. Another beautiful thing men do when they truly love you is remember the small details you've shared. Maybe you mentioned once in passing that you love a certain song from your teenage years, and one day you hear it playing softly in the background when you walk into the kitchen. Or perhaps you said you've been craving a particular dessert, and a few days later, there it is on the table, as if by magic. He remembers, not because he has to, but because he wants to. I once knew a couple who had been married for over 50 years. The husband, a quiet man, wasn't one for flowery speeches. But every Saturday morning, without fail, he'd bring his wife a cup of coffee just the way she liked it. 2 sugars, no milk. He'd been doing it for decades. She told me that cup of coffee meant more to her than any bouquet of roses ever could, because it was proof that he knew her. He cared enough to notice, and he never stopped paying attention. There's also the way a loving man protects you. Not in a controlling way, but in a way that makes you feel safe and cherished. Maybe it's how he walks on the side of the street closer to the traffic, or how he insists on carrying the heavy grocery bags, even if you tell him you can manage. It's in the way he looks out for your comfort, checking if you're too cold in a restaurant, or if the chair you're sitting on is sturdy enough. This isn't about thinking you can't take care of yourself. It's about love expressing itself through care. When a man truly loves you, your well-being is always on his mind, and these protective gestures are simply part of how he moves through the world with you in it. And then there's patience, perhaps one of the most underrated signs of love. Patience in waiting for you when you take a little longer to get ready, patience when you're explaining something and need a moment to find the right words, patience when life throws challenges your way and you're both figuring it out together. A man who loves you deeply understands that relationships are not a race. They are a journey, one you walk side by side at a pace that suits you both. I remember sitting on a park bench one afternoon, watching an elderly couple shuffle slowly down the path. The man's steps were steady but unhurried, matching his wife's exactly. At one point, she stopped to look at a flower, bending down to touch its petals. He didn't rush her. He just stood there, smiling, as if there was nowhere else he'd rather be. That's the kind of love that lasts. The kind that says, I'm here with you, no matter how long the road. When you see these things, the attentive listening, the remembering of small details, the quiet protection, the gentle patience, You're not just seeing actions, you're seeing love in motion. And the beauty is, they often happen without fanfare. He's not doing them to be noticed. He's doing them because loving you has become part of who he is. It's not always the grand gestures that reveal how deeply a man loves you. Often, it's in the smallest, most consistent actions, the ones so woven into daily life that you could almost miss them if you weren't paying attention. And yet, these are the very things that speak the loudest about the kind of love that lasts. One of the clearest signs is how he listens, not just to respond, but to truly understand you. You might be telling him a story you've told before, perhaps about your childhood, or about that one unforgettable trip you took years ago. And he doesn't interrupt, doesn't glance at his watch or reach for his phone. His eyes stay on you, warm and attentive, as if every word you say still matters, no matter how many times he's heard it. Then, weeks or months later, you notice he remembers a tiny detail you barely thought about, the name of the neighbor's dog from that old story, or the smell of the bakery you passed on that trip. He remembers because you matter to him, and the pieces of your life are precious enough for him to keep. There's a quiet devotion in the way he protects your comfort. Imagine it's a chilly evening, and you're both sitting outside to watch the sunset. Without a word, he gets up and brings you a blanket, draping it over your shoulders before you even realize you're cold. Or you're walking together, and he instinctively moves to the side closest to the street, keeping you a little safer without making a show of it. These aren't rehearsed actions. They're instinctive, born from the deep desire to shield you from discomfort, to make sure you feel cared for without you even having to ask. And then there are the sacrifices he makes, often quietly, without drawing attention to them. Maybe he gives up something he was planning for himself so you can have what you need. Perhaps he changes his plans to accompany you to an appointment, or skips something he enjoys so you won't have to go somewhere alone. He doesn't complain or remind you of what he gave up. Instead, he acts as though it was never even a question, because to him, your peace of mind outweighs his convenience every single time. Love like this also shows up in the way he celebrates your victories. They might not be big, headline-worthy moments. Sometimes they're as simple as you finishing a book you've been meaning to read, trying a new recipe that turned out well, or making it through a day you weren't sure you'd manage. He notices. He smiles at you with pride, maybe pulls you into a hug, and you can feel that he is genuinely happy for you, no matter how small the achievement might seem. His joy in your joy is genuine, because in his heart, the things that lift you up also lift him. Another heart-melting gesture comes in the way he supports your dreams, even the ones that might seem out of reach. He doesn't dismiss your ideas with a wave of the hand or tell you you're being unrealistic. Instead, he encourages you, reminds you of your strengths, and sometimes even helps you take small steps toward making those dreams real. If you've ever doubted yourself, his faith in you becomes a steady hand at your back, pushing you forward with quiet confidence. That kind of belief can make all the difference. And when it comes from someone who truly loves you, it can feel like sunlight breaking through the clouds. And then there's the way he looks at you when you're not trying to impress anyone, not dressed up, not perfectly put together, maybe even first thing in the morning when your hair is a little messy and your eyes are still heavy with sleep. In those moments, his gaze is soft, unguarded, and full of warmth, as if to say, "You are beautiful exactly as you are." That look carries more love than 1,000 compliments, because it's not about how you appear to the world, it's about how you appear to him through the lens of a heart that sees you as irreplaceable. Love this deep is not loud. It doesn't need to be shouted from rooftops or broadcast for the world to see. It's in the gentle way he listens, the instinctive way he shields you from the cold, the quiet sacrifices he makes, the pride in his eyes when you succeed, the steady belief he has in your dreams, and the tender way he looks at you when no one else is watching. These moments may not seem extraordinary to an outsider, but to the one who receives them, they are priceless. They are the threads that weave together a love that feels safe, lasting, and true. Sometimes the truest signs of love aren't in what he says, but in what he chooses to do when no one is watching. It's in the everyday, almost invisible moments, the things you wouldn't even know to thank him for because they're done quietly, simply because he wants your life to be a little easier. You might notice, for example, that certain problems seem to disappear before you even realize they were there. The squeaky door suddenly stops creaking. The car that was running low on fuel is somehow full when you need it. That bill you were worrying about is already taken care of. He doesn't announce it, doesn't wait for praise, because in his mind, love is about removing your burdens whenever he can, not about earning recognition. These quiet acts are his way of saying, I'm here. I've got you. There's also something deeply touching in the way he shares his world with you. Not just the polished parts he's proud of, but the raw, unfiltered corners too. He tells you about his fears, his past mistakes, the insecurities he rarely admits to anyone. That kind of openness is not easy for most men. It requires trust, and more than that, a willingness to be vulnerable. When a man lets you see the sides of him that the rest of the world never does, it's a powerful sign that his love for you runs deeper than words could ever capture. And in return, he makes space for your feelings, even the messy, complicated ones. He doesn't dismiss your sadness with "you'll be fine" or rush to change the subject when you're upset. Instead, he sits with you in it, not always with solutions, but with presence. Sometimes he just holds your hand or wraps you in his arms and lets you feel what you need to feel without judgment. There's comfort in knowing that your worst days won't scare him away. Then there's the way he adapts to you over time. Love, when it's genuine, is not static. It grows, it learns, it reshapes itself to meet the needs of the person it cherishes. If he knows you don't like surprises when it comes to big plans, he'll check in with you before making them. If he learns that you prefer a quiet evening over a crowded event, he'll start choosing those quiet evenings more often. These changes may seem small, but they're the result of him paying attention, valuing your happiness enough to shift his habits for it. A deeply loving man also finds ways to keep the spark alive, even when the relationship is comfortable and familiar. Maybe it's leaving a little note in your bag for you to find later, just a line or two to make you smile in the middle of your day. Maybe it's playing your song in the car without telling you, just so you'll notice and grin. Maybe it's cooking your favorite meal for no special reason at all. These gestures might take minutes to do, but the warmth they leave can last for days. And there's something almost sacred in the way he stands by you when life gets hard. Anyone can be there for the laughter and the celebrations, but the real test of love is how someone shows up in the storms. If you're sick, he's the one making sure you have what you need, even if it means losing sleep. If you're facing a challenge, he's not on the sidelines. He's right there beside you, helping you carry it. He doesn't let fear or inconvenience pull him away when you need him most. In those moments, his love becomes a steady anchor in a world that feels unsteady. You also notice it in the way he includes you in his future. Not as an afterthought, not as a vague idea, but as a certainty. He talks about plans months or years from now and says "we" without hesitation. Whether it's where you might travel, the home you might share, or even the traditions you might build together, he's already picturing you there. That quiet assumption that you are part of every chapter to come is one of the most heart-melting signs of all. And perhaps one of the most beautiful things he does is see you in all your stages and still choose you every single day. He's seen you at your best and your worst, in moments of strength and moments of doubt. He's seen you tired, frustrated, maybe even a little unreasonable now and then. And instead of pulling away, he stays. Because to him, your flaws are not deal breakers. They are simply part of the whole person he loves. When a man truly loves you, it's not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about all the times he chooses you. In the ordinary days, in the hard moments, in the times when love is quiet, and in the times when it's loud. It's about the way his actions line up with his words, the way his care shows up in small and mighty ways, and the way you can feel deep in your bones that you are safe in his heart. And maybe that's the most heart-melting thing of all, knowing you've walked through the years together, weathered storms, celebrated joys, and built something so unshakable that every gesture, every glance still carries the same spark as the first time. Love like that doesn't just happen. It's chosen again and again in the smallest ways every single day. If this touched your heart, I'd love to hear your own stories in the comments below. Have you experienced any of these moments yourself? Or maybe there's something special your partner does that always makes you feel cherished. Share it. Your words might inspire someone else today. And if you'd like more stories and insights like this, remember to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. It's the easiest way to make sure you don't miss future videos filled with warmth, wisdom, and reminders of how beautiful love can be at any stage of life. Here's to celebrating the love that lasts and to finding joy in the little things that make it so extraordinary.